What's up, guys? So I got to ask a good question about when I was coming up and fighting and how I managed my finances and how I was able to maximize my training with a low budget and with minimum time as well, because I still worked a full-time job. So honestly, it's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. You're going to be broke, and you're going to, if your goal is to go far, to try to make it to the UFC or pursue this at a high level, you're going to have to work during that time period. Very few people get to train full time without having a job. I mean, there's people in the UFC right now that still work, that are in the UFC, and you may have seen them fight last Saturday on TV, and they might have a job. Whether that's Uber, whether that's DoorDash, or one of these apps or something, guaranteed there's plenty of people that are working that are in the UFC. But it really is simple. It's not that complicated, but it does suck. You're gonna be broke. You're not going to have a lot of free time or money, for sure. So when I was coming up, I worked at several different off and on, just odd jobs. I worked at painting and sandblasting. I worked in the oil field. I worked as a bouncer. I worked in restaurants. I mean, I worked at Target. I worked at World Market. Before I got in the UFC, I probably had about 25 jobs total, because I moved to multiple different cities and towns, and I had to get a job each time I worked, and I was very dependable when I was coming up. I would work hard and everything, but I also just wouldn't stay at places. I was moving and trying to pursue my dreams. So I quit working, and I was working in the oil field making good money, and I quit that to go work at Target so I could train more. And then I ended up quitting there, going to a sandblasting company, and then eventually started bouncing and stuff. So before I got to the UFC, like within a year and a half or so before I got in the UFC, I worked at a strip club, actually. I've worked at multiple clubs in downtown Fort Worth and the stockyards, and then strip clubs. And I worked at a strip club, and I worked there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I worked those 4 nights, and then and those were usually about 10-hour shifts. And then I would train the rest of the time. I was still training like Friday morning, Saturday morning and stuff. And I was getting off work at 5 in the morning, sleeping for 3 or 4 hours, then going to practice, then coming back and sleeping. And I on the days I was off, I would be able to train twice a day. And then I just had no life, guys. I had no life and no money. I was very broke. I was making okay money, but nothing enough to get by, basically. And this is just part of the struggle. If you're trying to pursue this, no matter what job you do, you're probably not gonna be, unless you went to college and already have a full degree and you come out. Even then, you're still gonna have to work a full-time job and possibly train 2 hours a day or something like that, which is gonna be hard to get you to the UFC. But if you do it 6-7 days a week, you can get there over a several year time period. But managing your money is very hard, guys. You have to. Eating clean will honestly save you money if you portion out your food in proper portions and eat. People talk about how expensive eating clean is, and I don't really think it's expensive at all. I think that a bag of apples is as cheap as a bag of grapes, and it's more snacks. You're not going to eat 10 apples in one setting where you would eat like possibly a half a bag of chips in one setting. So I think that eating cleaner is cheaper if you only eat clean. If you're mixing it in and you're going to fast food one day and the next day you're trying to eat clean, that's going to add up. So eating clean and having a clean diet will honestly help you save money. So that's one option and one idea I would say to do. But the answer is, you're going to be broke. It's going to be hard, but if it's worth it to you, you'll do it. And if not, then you'll find an excuse. But just coming up, I just managed my money, and I was very smart with my money. I'm very frugal, and because I've been blessed. I've been able to, definitely not rich, nothing like that, but I own my own house, free and clear, with no mortgage, and I own both of my vehicles. Basically, I have a little payment left on one of them, but I own one vehicle free and clear. And that's just by being frugal and saving my money when I did make it, and buying, the right stuff. But if you're trying to pursue this and you're broke and money is tight, then you just have to take that mentality. You could basically be a full-time fighter right now. Almost anybody could, if they were willing to take a downgrade in their job or whatever they're doing and Uber drive. DoorDash. Walmart has that Spark driving app. You can do these apps every day. You could do them you could go to the airport in the morning and pick up people at the airport with Uber. Then you could go to your first practice. Then you could drive for a few hours in the middle of the day, Uber, DoorDash, Instacart, whatever. I mean, there's so many apps to make money now. And then you could do it after, or you could do it, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, those 3 days for 10 hours a day, or whatever you want your schedule to be, where you can practice as much as possible. But it's definitely possible to practice a lot on a busy schedule, and on a schedule that doesn't allow you to have much money. Like you don't have a serious career already or anything like that. It's definitely it's hard, but it's definitely possible to get to the UFC. That's how most people do. Is most people work a full-time job and just make it, and they train as much as they can on the side, and they don't have a life, and they don't have other interests, and that's really what it takes to be that dedicated if you're going to make it to a top level, given your situation. If you are not wealthy, or don't come from an extensive background where you already have a bunch of training and stuff. Like if you're a college wrestler and you wrestle for 3 or 4 years in college, you come out work and then still train 2 hours a day and have a good chance to go far if you have a high level background in some other martial art. But I hope that answers your question about budgeting. It's not easy, but it's definitely possible. Don't let anyone convince you that it's not. I mean, you can literally drive apps on your phone, driving apps on your phone, and make enough living to get by to pursue your dreams. So I hope that answers your question. If you're new to martial arts and you're looking for a guide to find a place near you, get my book, The Ultimate Guide to Choosing Your Martial Arts School and Instructor. The link is in the description below. If you have any other questions or anything, leave a comment. Thank you, guys.